Hey, folks. So I have a quiet Friday night at home, and I am going to do Arwen Lynch's tarot tag because I've never participated in one, in part because I've always felt like, well, who cares what I think? But I actually really like watching people's, and that's my natural codependency, um, you know, and lack of popularity in high school, going on 30 years ago, getting in the way. So screw that. So I am going to answer these questions too. I just got finished watching Kelly from the Truth and Stories live version of this, and I thought, hey, I want to play. So anyway, let's jump in because my battery's dying. So the first question is, what is your current favorite deck? Now, my general current favorite deck is the Wild Unknown, and I think that everyone on the planet has seen this deck and has love or hate for it. I was not expecting, as I've talked about many times, to love it, but I feel like the card stock is made out of heaven. Now, I've never felt I got the deck initially because I heard people talking about, whoops, that's not how we do things. I heard people talk about how much they loved the first edition cardstock, and I had an opportunity to get my hands on the first edition and did not take it. And I go back and forth on regretting it, but I really like this. But because of March of the Pips, ... which we all know I'm in love with right now, Pip decks have really been something special this month. And again, as I've said in other videos, they've kind of changed the game for me. And like I said, I feel like I was sort of heading in that direction anyway, but this has really, really pushed me down that path. So I have to say my current favorite deck right now is the Visconti Sforza, and this is the Mary Packard version of it. And I honestly don't know what it is about this deck. I talked about this in my last March of the Pips video, that it just charms me in a really special way. And I think partly because of the shape. Now, this is not the most user-friendly in terms of a shuffling deck. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to shuffle. But doing readings with it is really satisfying, and just holding it is really satisfying. Despite the fact that it is difficult to shuffle, just sort of having it in hand and engaging with it feels really good. I'm a little tired, so my shuffling is even worse than usual. But laying it out, I don't know, there's just something about it that, it feels like this is what a tarot deck should feel like. So this is the deck that I feel most drawn to right now. In a way, against my better judgment, because knowing what I know about the deck, having seen it, not seen it, but knowing that it was created for rich people always makes me anxious, given my progressive bent. But I don't know, I really, really enjoy it. But all my Pip decks this month get honorable mentions. But if I had to choose a deck right now that I'm really living for, I'm really enjoying this one. And this, again, relatively cheap version. This is the Golden Tarot, their Mary Packard version. It's $20. It's really good. So that's that. Now, the question 2 is, what tarot card do you think stands for who you are now? I'm gonna go back to my go-to deck as I chat. These are hard questions to answer, but when it comes to the card, I think I am now. I'm gonna go to one of my favorite iterations of that card, and choose the Hermit. Heck, I'll choose it in this deck too. I am really very much an introvert, and I didn't know what that meant for a long time. When I was younger, I thought an introvert meant shy, and I do have a shyness, and if you listen to my videos, I've clearly got insecurity going on too. But I didn't know that introversion meant that it wasn't about whether you enjoy being around people or not, or whether you're shy or not. That it's about how you replenish your energy stores. And it was only in the last few years that I really kind of recognized what that meant and reclaimed what it meant. And I'm looking now behind me because there's a book I'm looking for. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Yeah, I can't find it, and I'm not going to bore you by watching me wait, or watching me look for it. It's a book called Quiet, and it's about introversion, and I think that that book really helped me reclaim and understand what it means to be an introvert, and in good and bad ways, and there are really good ways in which introversion um, is helpful. For one thing, I'm a writer, and it takes time alone, and it takes quiet time to achieve things, to get anything done. It's also important to know how your energy stores work, and that if you are around people too much, whether or not you love them, it's draining, it's taxing. You know what I mean? You have an energetic account. I've been talking about it this way in terms of this. You have essentially limited social capital, and you have to spend and save it wisely. And in the past few years, that's really been a balancing act for me in good and bad ways. I was just talking to my therapist about the fact that having so fully embraced my introversion, it's tough sometimes to make myself participate in the world. And it's not to say that I'm a recluse, but my inclination, especially after a hard day at work, is to come home and just be quiet and watch videos about tarot, for example, and do readings and do videos and write and all those things. So I'm very much the hermit. What tarot card? So that's question 2. Question 3: what tarot card do you think stands for who you want to be? Well, in a way, it is the hermit, because I'm really empowered by the introvert nature that I experience. But I'm actually just I didn't plan an answer to this, so I'm just sort of quickly flipping through. I don't know that there's one card necessarily that speaks to who what's the stands for what I want to be, that I want to be. I think actually I'm going to say the Magician, but the Magician is actually not my favorite card in this deck, so I'm going to look for him here. The Rider-Waite Magician is actually my favorite. I think that the reason I say the Magician is because he, and I'm using the pronouns here generically rather than specifically, because I don't believe that any of these cards represent one gender. But I remember reading somewhere, and I can't remember if it's oh God, what's the name of the book? Rachel Pollack's book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. See, I'm having a quiet Friday night, but I'm also exhausted because it was a really long week. I don't think it was in that book, but in one of her books, she talks about how the magician, particularly as depicted by Pamela Coleman Smith, draws energy from the sky and channels it into his work. And to me, I've talked about this many times, that's sort of the epitome of creative work. We sort of, as creative people, as tarot readers or writers or painters or anything, when we're really cooking, we as the creator, for lack of a better word, kind of fade into the background and become a conduit for the energy to flow from, wherever it comes from, into the palette or the keyboard, or the whatever it is we do. And that is as true for a painter or a writer or a musician as it is for a nurse or a teacher, or you know and anyone who does anything they care about. When we're really in the space, the magician becomes a conduit, and that sums up to me the kind of beauty um of this sounds pretentious. By the way, I'm seeing the book I was looking for a minute ago. It's on the other side of the room. It sums up to me the beauty of doing anything. When we, as the human element, recede, and the energy of creation or making or doing recedes. So that's my little soliloquy on that. Question 4. Draw a card and tell us how it answers the question, what does the universe want you to know right now? So because I like variety, I'm just going to reach for another deck that's beside me. And I'm going to go with this one. So let's see. What does the universe want you to know right now? And by you, it means me. So let's shuffle. While I do this, I'll say shuffling cards is one of the most relaxing things ever. Particularly for a deck that has nice stock, because the sound of it can be as relaxing as the act. And if you're a remotely anxious person, as I am, the act of doing something with your hands that is sort of mindless and repetitive, but also satisfying, goes a long way. In fact, I was on a conference call at work the other day, and was shuffling away quietly, and it helped me concentrate. I've talked about this before. I work in adult learning, and one of the things for folks that are remotely kinesthetic learners is that having something to do with their hands that doesn't distract them but keeps them occupied can... Whoops, jeez. What a mess, huh? Can help them learn better. All right, since I'm shuffling so badly, we'll say that I'm done. Bloop. And let's see. The 3 of Cups. So I would say that the universe wants me to know right now how the strands of different emotional states weave together to create something new. And that being aware of the blending of emotional states shapes the world around us, and can help us continue to create new emotional states, because 3s of course are about sort of joining and creating. It's 1 and 2 joining together to create a third, so it births something new. And I'm a person who would just as well not exist in the emotional world, because I'm such a swordsy person. I'm such an intellectual in a literal sense, because my state is generally very heady. And so coming back, and in a way it's interesting too, because if I look at the 3 of Cups sort of in this particular deck, it starts with 1 and moves to 2. So sort of channeling the emotional energy like a prism creates new paths. So I would say that to sort of be aware of the various flows of emotional energy and the impacts they can have. And given the fact that I haven't been in the kindest place this week emotionally, I think that makes sense. All right. Question 5. Do you have any cards you must love in order to work with the tarot deck? Yes. There are cards that can prevent me from wanting to work with the deck. One of them is the Magician, and one of them is the Hermit. And the third is actually the Fool. Although I'm more tolerant of the Fool than most cards. But if I really hate the Magician, or if I really hate the Hermit, I can definitely feel turned off by a deck. More and more, when I started reading, I used to feel very married to um, Rider-Waite-Smith symbolism. And so if a deck didn't have, for example, a three of swords with three swords through a heart, I found it hard to read. That is no longer the case. But the Hermit and the Magician are two. The Fool I can forgive, but if it's ugly, I don't like it. Um, I'm turning through my mental Rolodex for anyone who remembers what a Rolodex is, and attempting to think of others. I think those are the two decks that really or cards that really make me fall in love with a deck. Uh, Also will include the Empress, the Death card. For example, the Death card in Wild Unknown taught me so much about what that card represents. Um, so the two cards that are sort of really important to me are the Hermit and the Magician. But cards that I look for to inspire me or teach me new things, the Empress, the Magician, I'm sorry, the Empress, the Death card, the Wheel of Fortune can frequently turn me off because it's not my favorite card. And like in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, I hate it, especially in the printing that I use most, which is the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack. I just find it really unattractive. It's just really not pleasant to look at in an inspirational or any other way. It's literally the last card in the pile. So this card taught me a lot about what the meaning of the Death card means in readings, which is the way that our past decomposes and fertilizes our future. And I really really like it for that reason. So yeah, the Magician and the Hermit are my top two. I love the Hermit in this deck. If I'm thinking about the Deviant Moon in particular, which has a Hermit that I just can't abide. And yeah, if I had to boil it down to one, I'd say the Hermit. So that's that. Why tarot and not some other divination system? That's an excellent question. Because I do have a couple Oracle decks that I really rarely use, and I think they're all really beautiful. So the three specifically Oracle related decks that I have are the Wisdom of the Oracle, Chiara Marchetti's Oracle deck, I cannot remember the name of it, and Marcella Krall's Sacred Symbols Oracle. I have talked about this before, but I bought some Oracle decks. I bought them really in quick succession. So I got the Chiara Marchetti deck, and then I think it's Colette Baron Reed, and the Marcella Krall deck, the Sacred Symbols, pretty quickly on each other this summer, when I kind of started to feel like the system of tarot was limiting. I started to feel like I felt kind of hemmed in by the images and by the rules, so to, quote unquote, the rules. And as soon as I didn't have the images and the rules, I felt not the kind of freedom that I expected, but more unmoored. That I was sort of floating without a GPS. So I am a person for whom tarot is the system that I prefer. Still, though, I'm pretty actively attempting to learn Lenormand, because I've been reading for, I've talked about this before. I've been reading for a long time. And over the years, I've noticed that tarot can get very symbolic and poetic and ephemeral. And when I hear people talk about other systems, their clients frequently seem more interested in those other systems because, with Lenormand, say, you get a more practical answer. You know what I mean? It is more terse. So, it's easier to draw a couple cards. And if the question is like, should I apply for this job? Even just knowing very little about Lenormand, um, you draw three cards and you have two sort of notoriously negative cards and a boss card. So, you might say that you'll wind up with a boss, who's sneaky and wrong a lot. Maybe, maybe this isn't the right job for you. Um, Tarot, will give more complicated answers. Should I apply for this job? I get Temperance and the ten of coins, and it becomes about, well, you have to think about, balancing things in life, and trying to figure out what's going to bring you the greatest sense of completion. Like that's a loftier thing than bear, fox, and snake, which says, there's going to be a powerful person who complicates your life and takes you to the wrong place, say. Um, but I'm still more drawn to tarot for a lot of reasons. One, I've been reading it longer, and two, I actually find Lenormand harder to read. I've talked about this before. I have had moments of reading Lenormand, in really casual ways. I texted a friend the other night and said, "Hey, I'm learning the system. Do you want a quick reading?" And I did like three card readings, and it was, about as lightning specific as you can get. I still prefer tarot because, as a kind of swordsy, intellectually heady person, I like the poetry of it. But as I've talked about many times, I'm trying to find a way to make it more practical so that it's as attractive as Lenormand. So if I am looking at a question, for, I lost those two cards, didn't I? It doesn't matter. How did I do that? I don't even remember. Anyway, if I get Temperance and the Ten of Coins, my goal has been to make tarot kind of begin as terse and specific and quick as Lenormand can be, but at the same time can go deeper. So, is this the right job for me? How do I look at Temperance and the Ten of Coins from a practical standpoint? That answers, whether or not it really is. And Temperance suggests a certain amount of patience and a certain amount of thoughtfulness, and the Ten of Coins rather, represents completing a practical journey. And I have to figure out how that answers the question practically so that it doesn't become muddled and muddy. So how do I answer that question? Is it the right thing for you? Yes, if you're patient and you're willing to take the whole journey through. If you're looking for short-term gains, probably not, And that's so that's been my challenge this year, is to find ways to answer questions more specifically. I'm rambling like crazy, as I always do. So that's why tarot, over anything else. What's the first book you remember reading about tarot other than the Little White Book? This is question 7. Talked about this before. The first book I looked at, I got at a discount bookstore, and I cannot find. I think I remember throwing it out. I don't remember the name of it. I remember the author, but I didn't read it. I just sort of scanned through it, and it was where I saw the Rider-Waite-Smith Empress for the first time and fell in love. The first book I read, and I've talked about this before, is this book, the Everything Tarot book. I think that Everything Company. Now, I didn't know this when I bought the book. I just went to Borders, which was still around at the time, and I looked, and this seemed like the most the one that I connected with most. What I didn't know was that it was essentially like another version of the Complete Idiot's Guide to, or the dummy, Tarot for Dummies, for example. But that said, it had a lot in it. The book is problematic from an editing standpoint because here I go chewing ice. It's like I'm in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. There are sections of the book that jump to nowhere, and it was poorly edited, and there are typos in it. But it actually was a pretty decent book. It was my first book, and it was the one that I began, I sat down with it, and I got a notebook, and I made my notes, and that notebook was what I referenced when I started reading for others. But then very quickly I discovered that there was more out there, that it wasn't just you go to the bookstore and pick a book, that you really search. So I found the amazing Rachel Pollack shortly after, and I just, I know everyone who reads tarot loves 78 Degrees of Wisdom, but there's a reason it's good, because it comes from such a generous, smart, thoughtful, curious place. And so while this is the first book I remember really reading, the book that captured me was 78 Degrees of Wisdom. And I still have it. It's definitely worn, and it's on the verge of falling apart. But I remember, I still from time to time think about, the story that she tells in that book of, discovering cards, getting offered a reading from a friend who she gave a ride home to in the winter, and, her tales of reading tarot in tents, while camping, and, the story she tells about going to propose teaching a tarot class and doing a reading for one of the deciders, one of the committee members in the room with other people in there. And, she's just a genius. Anyway, that's not the first book I read. This one is. And, like anything, I actually frequently pull this out just to kind of recreate the feeling of learning again. It's like this book and the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack in that purple and gold box, that everyone hates. Not the box, but the deck itself. I still remember, being 19 years old in my bedroom in my parents' apartment, laying on my bed and looking at them and hiding them. So it's actually kind of a good memory in a fun way. So this is the first book. That was my first. What tarot person would you like to sit down for a chat about tarot? Probably Rachel Pollack. Who wouldn't? But all of you who watch my videos, and all of the people whose videos I watch, it's fun to talk about. It's just fun to talk about. But yeah, I one of the things that I admire so much about Rachel Pollack is that she came at tarot not as just a reader, as an educator, and as someone who is a reader, and not necessarily in tarot, but in life as an educator. I really admire that. Tell me about one YouTube channel that you watch and why. I will do this. Tell me about one YouTube. So this question actually does not talk about tarot. It says, tell me about one YouTube channel that you watch and why. So I mentioned a lot of YouTube channels that I really like. But here's a recommendation. Peaceful Cuisine. So this is not a tarot related YouTube channel, but I'm gonna tell you that I watch it a lot. It's quiet videos of cooking with no voiceover, just the sound of the food being made. Beautifully lit and shot. I mean, it's gorgeous and it's so relaxing. And incidentally, if you happen to be a vegan, which I'm not, but if you are, all the recipes are vegan. Peaceful cuisine, stunning. There are versions of the videos with music, but I recommend the ones that don't have music. How many tarot decks do you have? I have many, and many that I can't find, but I have begun kind of divesting decks that I don't work with. Because I'm not much of a collector, A, and B, I've kind of outgrown my apartment and I'm too lazy to move. So I'm trying to maximize the limited storage that I have. I have roughly 32 tarot decks, specifically tarot decks, that are on my table, and that I consider decks that I would read with at any point. They're not necessarily decks I use a lot, but they are 32 decks that are, within arm's length. In fact, maybe one day I'll do a video about what I have out and why. They're mostly decks that I've that are new, but not necessarily. And then I have maybe 15 or 20 other decks that have just been sitting idle, and that many of them are featured in my tarot trade videos. Which, by the way, if you're watching this and you're looking, many of them are still available. I think the only ones I've found new homes for are the Nigel Jackson. The Nigel Jackson was the first one to go, and in a way, I regret letting it go, except that the person who got it really liked it, and I'm happy. I think the Tarot Roots of Asia was another one that I found a new home for, and the Celtic Wisdom, Caitlin Matthews deck. But I think almost everything else that I've featured, including the original version of the Mythic and the Infinity Tarot, I still have. So I've got 32 decks that I would consider working decks, and then a handful more that I bought and don't use. Do you mix oracles and tarot when you read? Not really. I have, but given my discussion of oracles before, I will sometimes reach for an oracle if a reading really sort of presents a struggle for the person I'm reading for. I'll sometimes pull an oracle card to put a positive button or an empowering button on the reading, but I generally don't. Have you ever created your own tarot card or deck? No, but I really would like to. I'm not an artist, and I have a sense of movement, which sounds weird. Like I think about I've engaged in art with gentle degrees of success, but I don't know that I have 78 cards in me. I really wish I did. I really would like to, but I am a writer, and really my aim, what I really would love to do, is collaborate with an artist and write a book for a deck. And I've thought about writing a book just on tarot in general. What stopped me are two things: time and the fact that there are so many good ones out there. And on one hand, I feel like I love reading any good book on the subject, and so I don't necessarily feel like one more is going to hurt anybody. But on the other side of the coin, do I have anything to say that nobody else has? I don't know. But I have been thinking about the fact that I do have an approach that is somewhat unusual, and a background that's somewhat different. So I've been in the back of my mind thinking about what I could offer in that realm that doesn't copy what other people, and doesn't sort of take up space that other people have already sort of captured with their genius, but that adds to the conversation. And I have some ideas, and if I can make that happen, I will. Do you read for yourself? I do, but not often. That's 13. Yeah, do you read for yourself? I am not super good at reading for myself. I've done videos about reading for yourself, and I definitely think it's possible, and there are times where it has been effective for me. In fact, I did a Celtic Cross demonstration as a video on this channel back in the autumn. It was probably the best I've ever read for myself. But I frequently don't for many reasons. As a person who's prone to anxiety, I will frequently read the cards for myself in a way that I would never read them for a client or a friend. Um, and it's just hard. And it's not just objectivity that reading for yourself requires. It's also patience and sitting down and really engaging with it, and not just laying out the cards and saying yep and then swiping them back up. um for me to successfully read for myself, in fact, one of the best things I can do is actually make a video like I'm reading for someone else. But that's time consuming. The other thing is, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but I frequently don't need to. I am, I'm going to choose the word cursed with self-awareness. Um, I I don't necessarily need a reading in many cases to see the consequences of my choices or the reasons why I'm doing things. Self-awareness and 10 years of therapy. So I do, but rarely. What are your favorite questions to be asked when you're doing reading for someone else? I think being asked a question at all is my favorite question. I've done reading videos about this before too. I feel like the best readings that I do for people, and the best readings we can do for people, are, stem from when they have a question. The more that someone is willing to tell me about a question they have, the more specific and practical I can make the reading. The less they want to tell me, or the more general they are, the more general the reading is going to be. And in my experience, frequently people are fine with that. They seem to get what they want out of the situation. But I feel like as a reader, I have more to offer when there is a specific question that I can talk to. So being asked a question at all, I think is a good thing, and I prefer it. But what's interesting on that topic is that people don't know what to ask or how to ask it. They actually feel a little bit of pressure when I ask someone I'm reading for, whether it's a friend or a client, what do you want a reading about? It suddenly feels like a test on their part, and they don't really know. And that's, my job, or our job as readers, is to make them feel okay about that. And frequently, I do okay readings, decent readings, sometimes better than decent, for people without a question. But I like having boundaries to work within. So being asked a question at all. Finally, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you during a reading? I haven't had many crazy experiences during readings for anyone, or even myself. I'll tell you two stories, which I may have mentioned in other videos. The first one was reading for a friend, and the second one was listening to an audio course. The first one was when I was fairly new to reading, but not, I was a couple years in. That's probably not even true, now that I think about it. It may have been only about 10 years ago. I was doing a reading for a friend, and I laid out the cards, and it was the Empress, it was the Queen of Pentacles, it was like the Three of Cups. Everything in the reading said motherhood, and that's not an experience I get frequently as a reader, where it's like, boom, that's specific. And I looked at my friend and I said, are you still on your birth control? And she said, no, I actually went off of it. And I said, you may want to make sure you're being careful with your boyfriend right now. And she said, no, that's not what it says. And I said, I didn't know you weren't taking it, and I see motherhood left, right, and sideways. So just, if that's what you want, great. But I know it's not what you want, and just be aware. Another was when I was listening to the Tarot School's Past Life Readings audio course, which I recommend. And I was right out of the gate. I was still really new. I was still living in my parents', my bedroom in my parents' apartment, and I was listening to it, and I follow. You know, it's essentially a guided meditation, and I. I have the memory of following it, and I swear to God, I think it was something as innocuous as the strength card, and the lion, and the strength card was sort of part of the meditation. Somehow that triggered in my mind an image of being on a train in the 1920s. I could see my legs, looking down at, my legs, and I could see pinstripe suit pants and spats basically on my feet, and I could feel the motion of the train. So and it was crazy, and it was interesting because who knows if that was imagination or if I had triggered some past event. you know it felt very Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express, but on the other side of that coin, that's not a genre that I'm given to exploring. Like, I don't read mystery novels, I don't read Agatha Christie, I don't think a lot about the 1920s. So and it just was so surprising that it like snapped me out of it, and I regret not staying there. I wish I could have, but fascinating. And there have been others, but those are the two that are most memorable. So I have successfully managed to talk for more than 40 minutes on a video that I thought would take about 15 in my inimicable way. So thanks to Arwen Lynch for creating this tag. And thanks to Kelly for the Truth and Story for hosting the live video that made me think I should try this. And thanks to you for watching. And I hope you're having as relaxing a Friday night as I am. I think that I'm going to very quickly turn on the Golden Girls and doze off. So I'm going to go do that. Be well, and take care.